Yes, all right. So I'm Helen Bolsh. I'm a trustee of Speech New Zealand, and it's my pleasure today to introduce you to Pauline Douglas, another trustee of Speech New Zealand. And we probably couldn't have got a more experienced person to talk to us about ESOL, because Pauline's been involved in that industry for over 40 years. She teaches ESOL. She teaches it she's taught it at the Teachers College. She's been an advisor on ESOL in secondary schools, and she's also examined for the International English Language Testing System exams. And her background was as an English teacher. And then in the late 70s, when we started getting refugees from Cambodia, she started teaching them English, and she's been in the field ever since. And she now, at the moment, she teaches as a teacher at the University of Otago Language Centre. And for about the past 15 or 20 years, she has taught and examined the Speech New Zealand ESOL syllabus. So Pauline tonight is going to be covering some of the tips and techniques for teaching English to speakers of other languages, and also about how to go about setting up a business or incorporating this side of things into your existing business. So we're looking forward to it, Pauline.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Helen. It's a pleasure to be here, and my pleasure to be of help to anyone that would like to know about that. Could I just mention, first of all, the Speech New Zealand syllabus for ESOL was really set up in terms of providing a totally supportive graded network and a system where even the absolute beginner, who's someone who was just really gaining a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of fluency, could get some experience and confidence. So it's very much centred around the sense of achievement and confidence building. So it's not like a major international assessment program with a rigid assessment criteria. It's very much confidence building, achievement building, and working on a gradual building up of vocab, fluency, grammar skills, and that whole ability, and of course the whole focus is communication rather than having an exam. It's, can this candidate express what they want to say? Can they communicate in a very simple way in the lower grades, and in the higher grades with more complex language? So that's really the focus. That's why there's the 6 grades, going from the absolute, really a beginner person right to the confident second language speaker, but someone that's still looking to improve their vocabulary, their grammar skills, their whole linguistic control. So that's what the higher grades are really looking at. So that's really what we're doing: confidence and a sense of achievement. Okay, and I think Emma's got the grades there. Have you, Emma?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Right, so there's the 6 grades all laid out very clearly in the syllabus with supportive notes, with the exact details of each section. So these beginning ones, introductory, foundation, very much just to get people settled in. Oh my goodness, I'm doing an exam, I've got to prepare a little talk, 2 or 3 minutes, I've got to bring along something to talk about. So it's getting confidence in basic vocab, nouns, the names of things. The 2 important things, of course, are the nouns, the naming, and the action, the verbs. So that's what they're really looking at there. They're looking at their topic. What's the key words? How do I go about describing my interest or my topic? So that's what they're starting with. Some very basic language, simple sentences, no complex, long, developed sentences. Very simple, just getting started, and the vocab will be, simple and basic. The next 2 grades, bridging and the intermediate. Bridging is exactly as they say. It's really a bridge between that beginner, someone finding their feet, and getting into the more developed and fluent style. So bridging covers that period between developing the confidence and building the fluency into the intermediate, which is really the start of the grades that are looking at in a little bit more depth. You know, can this person use extended vocab? Can they use a range of adjectives? Do they, you know, could they do a range of adjectives? Colour, shape, size, form, the texture of something. So they're really looking at, apart from the basic nouns and the verbs, which are the action, how do you describe something? And once you've got the vocab, say for the action, the verbs, how do you make that interesting? Well, you add adverbs to it, and that brings it to life. That brings the action to life. For example, if someone is creating a beautiful poster or creating a collage of some sort, you can give a model of it and say, well, that's an amazingly creative collage. So what you're doing when you're teaching is giving the models of the vocab, you know, giving the adverb with the ly. Oh, that's an incredibly inspiring talk. So what you're doing is adding the vocab all the way, and that's extending the candidate. Now, the senior grade and the advanced, these are getting up, giving the people that have got a confidence, they're getting older, perhaps into the senior high school territory, they're perhaps tackling NCEA, but they're still looking for some speaking criteria that will help them gain confidence. So in senior is a very good grade because it gives a range of skills that they can do. A talk, they have to do an impromptu, they have to do a social speech. So that's a really lovely, gives variety and extends them. The advanced, I would advise, really only for those that are perhaps thinking about tertiary study. They may need an international exam, they may need IELTS, which is the Cambridge exam. They may be thinking about a TOEIC, which is the American exam, and it's usually required in Japan for business purposes and, of course, for job advancement. TOEIC is very popular in Japan and parts of Asia. And the advanced grade sort of gives those people the chance to practice, if you like, especially for the speaking component, because they have to present a seminar of their own choice. They have to have discussion with the audience. They have to talk about their future plans. So the languages you'll see is advancing from the very basic noun, verb, short sentence, into the bridging intermediate, extended vocab, adjectives, adverbs, then into this more senior and advanced. We're really expecting more abstract thinking, which is very difficult when you're starting off. I think you'll agree. The junior grades, to ask anything of an abstract nature, which is, what do you think about, or what is your opinion about, or, can you give me the differences between how people, some people think this way, other people think the other way. That's very abstract, and you need a very high level of vocab. So really only looking up here in the advanced. And senior, of course, does expect a really good level, of vocab. And thank you, Emma. We'll just flick through very quickly. Confidence building, achievement. Short questions, and you've got your props or pictures. No prolonged questions or abstract ideas. Okay, abstract means like on a larger scale. and opinion, a probability, all those things that are required. Even we will say, oh, let me think about that, because it requires thought when you get an abstract question. Thanks, Emma. So we'll go through these fairly. Okay, and then bridging, developing the fluency, confidence again, and the ordering comes in here. How do you order things, into good paragraphs so that things are logical and come through in a logical order? And that helps them, of course, when they're, doing their writing at school and teachers expecting some written work about topics, and they have to do paragraph work with their assessments and assignments. You can ask more probing questions. I often will ask things like, why did you choose this passage? And they have to think, because it was exciting, because it was telling us the answer to the mystery, because it was an important event for the character. So there's usually something quite specific. Or can you tell me what happens at the end of the book? And that you'll soon find out if they've read the whole book, because there's a section in that grade about reading a passage. So it's a really good, because can you tell me what happens at the end? Oh yes, at the end, the family come together again, or at the end, goes away. So just something to finalise what's happening there. So that bridging grade is sort of as it is between the lower and the higher, more challenging grades. But it's a really good grade. Thanks, Emma. And then the next one is, now intermediate is a very popular grade for the international student who's in the high school system, and they've been here. Well, hopefully they will all come back, and next year and the following year. Very popular for the student who's been here, coming to New Zealand or other countries with a reasonable English, but still a little bit reluctant to practice their speaking, because of course the teenagers naturally reluctant because they don't have all the cool language in English. They don't have all the slang that's, that this teenage speak. So of course they're not going to be up there chatting away straight away. But this grade will give them some confidence, because it's asking, for a topic. Then they have to do another sort of a social speech, and it's a really nice grade. You can ask for more detail. There's a lovely section where they talk about a person, an event, or a place that's influenced them. And that's a lovely one, because often they'll choose people from their country, or they'll choose a leader, a worldwide leader, and they'll talk about that. And then you can probe a little more into that, because they'll have more language by this intermediate grade. You can say, what personal qualities make a leader? And if they're not sure about what that means, personal qualities, you can say, it's about character. It's about, what makes a person special. Then they'll say, okay, I had someone once who did, I think, someone like Nelson Mandela, a leader of that nature. Because he inspired, the different peoples that were having difficulties, in South Africa. So they'll come up with a wide range of topics there. But personal qualities, they have to think, personal qualities like trust and, being very true to themselves and the belief in the peoples. So you'll get some really interesting vocab, right on the reports, the way they've used vocab, because it's a big effort for them to do that. So that's an excellent grade for, the person who's been here for a year or two, but needs a challenge, that especially that international student. It's a really good grade. And the next one, Emma, they're up to the senior and advanced. Now, these grades are excellent. They develop fluency because the requirements are longer. They have to do a senior, they're doing a persuasive speech. Now, that requires language, of course, that's talking about why perhaps it's not, or it's harmful to continue or to even start perhaps smoking or vaping. And they're going to have to persuade their audience that that is maybe not such a positive idea. So, of course, the language there will be using, a wide range of adjectives, adverbs, and using, longer sentences to show, well, some people think, but other people, and they'll be giving evidence about, perhaps the data. So they'll be looking at some figures or statistics. So what they're often doing, I often tell teachers, to use what they're studying at school. And often they'll be doing topics in their, I'm just thinking about science or different studies that they're doing. There's some excellent topics that they can talk about there, even social issues of the day. If they're doing, some schools teach the IB, the International Baccalaureate exams, and they often do project work looking at some of these topics. So, some of those can be excellent in terms of thinking about, what sort of topics should we do for a persuasive speech or for the seminar for the advanced grade. So a lot of those can be really, put it back on the students, especially at this level. Now, what are you studying? What are you studying in your sciences or your geography or history or whatever they're studying? Get the candidates to nominate what they are studying, because that's a really important thing. And then, of course, the more probing abstract, what do you mean by the term, perhaps they're talking about stress and anxiety and worry and, in today's society. And you'll say, what do you mean by time poor? What does that mean, time poor? Because that's like an idiom, isn't it? Something that we can use. Is, it means, short of time, not enough time. So what you're doing is getting them to paraphrase. And that's a key skill, no matter where they're going to use their English. Paraphrase means putting into their words what they're reading or the vocab that they're using. So that's why I will often say to them, what do you mean by, environmental problems or environmental, or someone talked about computer waste, old computers, how they get thrown. What do you mean by computer waste? And that means I'm asking them, what does that actually mean? And they'll say, it means people throw away computer, into the garbage. Well, that shows they can paraphrase the meaning, of what the word is trying to say. So you can ask paraphrases at this, what do you mean by, or can you tell me more about that? Because this level, that's really what they need, more probing questions. Or you could, perhaps someone talked about food allergies once. So I said, tell me, why did you choose the topic of food allergies? And what does an allergy, really mean? And of course they will have researched it, because they're usually incredibly conscientious, and they'll tell you what the allergy is. And it's amazing what they will, and so work on their response. At this level, I would, engage with quite a few, questions about, the topics, the vocab they've used, the reasons that they've chosen the topics, and then you can get some really, really good discussion going. Without probing too much into perhaps, personal opinion, but you can say, some people think this and other people have a different opinion. Why do you think people have different ideas or different opinions? And that just leaves it open for them. I wouldn't ever say, what's your opinion about, because that puts people on the spot, and it's not always culturally helpful. This is a supportive, and encouraging exam, so you don't want to have anything of a situation where it's almost a little bit, confrontational. It's meant to be totally supportive, engaging, and working for the candidate rather than for the examiner. So work on what they're saying and their responses, rather than thinking, the grammar's wrong there, I'm going to mark them down, or they've left out the preposition, here, and no, that's not important. Can you hear them? Can you hear them? Are they speaking out? Well, you might miss a little bit, but can they sound most of the words? Can they, give a beginning and introduce their talk? Can they have the body? Can they finish their talk in a logical way? So it's really teaching skills that are going to be lifelong for them, both with their written work and with their speaking work. And I'm looking at the time, and I'm just thinking, really, the important thing if you're entering candidates in these exams, use where they're at, rather than thinking, I've got to go and look at a whole range of topics. Ask a young person who's just starting off, I'm going to put you into the foundation level. And I'm looking at the foundation. If I was a teacher, I'm looking at the foundation level. Section 1, talk about a personal experience, interest, or activity. Well, every young person's going to have an experience. Often they'll talk about, my trip to New Zealand, or my flight to New Zealand. Hopefully, we're all living in hope, because these are candidates that are obviously, coming in from different countries. And interest, well, often you'll get sports there, you'll get other cultural activities, art, music, drama, a whole range there, or any other activity. Sometimes they'll be doing something through the school, of course, or in their free time. Sometimes they'll be learning another skill, some other activity that they're going to. So use where they're at and ask them. And when you're doing the story or legend, often they'll be doing a fable from their country. So make it interesting for them and say, well, why is there such a famous fable or legend in your country? And often they'll be doing their pictures to have a little storyboard, or they'll have it on the PowerPoint. I find over the last few years, most of the talks and the drama, often the drama and the legend, they will have the key points or pictures up on the PowerPoint, and you'll say, these are beautiful pictures. Where did you find? And they're off the internet. Of course, the internet. But tell me how you found those beautiful pictures, and why. Why is this legend, important in your country? We learned it when we were just, little children. But usually they're telling a story for a reason, those legends and the fables. And they'll say, oh, it's talking about kindness. You don't want a lot vocab. You just want perhaps one or two. Oh, that legend's talking about generous, being, caring for people. That's all you need. You don't need a big explanation. This is a fable telling us about the difference between good and evil and what's going to happen. You don't need that. If it's about kindness, or it's about old people, caring for old people, that's all you need. And that's, really good for them. Now, what you're going to find, especially at the lower grades, it says in the syllabus, do not memorise your talk, but they're going to memorise it. Because if you were speaking possibly in exams in Russian, or I think I'd be trying to memorise my talk too. No, what I normally would do is let them have their spiel, let them do their talk, because I'll have little cards and they'll be trying not to show you that they're reading it or memorising. But invariably at the younger grades that they will, because it's confidence. But you can let them do their spiel, and then at the end you say, okay, well, pop the cards down now, and you've shown me some beautiful pictures on your PowerPoint. Let's look at those. Then you can say, there's a picture there with that they've got the most beautiful, clothes. Can you tell me just a little more? And they might have just a little bit of vocab to tell you about what the clothes people have on, or the colour. So you can just, even though they've memorised the talk, you can still glean a little more just by using what they've produced. And the higher grades, of course, you're probing, you're asking for more language, you're looking for that higher, ability to use the language, and you're expecting the grammar to be, fairly well accurate. There will be mistakes. Of course, they'll leave out the article, they'll leave out prepositions, because it's hard to remember, but they'll have the basic vocab there, and that's what you're looking for, and that's what you're commending them for the work that they've done. Okay, now up to this bit here, they take their exams very seriously, and the report forms will be scrutinised by the whole family. Well, that's because exams are often, they're high stakes, and what you can comment on is really important. So give the feedback that they've, really helpful feedback. Next, for example, if they've rushed through their talk, say, next time, try to pace your talk with more pauses. So, just write exactly what's going to help that candidate. Think about the important words to stress. These will often be the nouns, because they don't always know that the important words in their topic are the names of things, or it might be the verbs if it's someone talking about a really energetic activity. So you could give that feedback, and if they've memorised it, say, look, you did incredibly well with the topic. Try to present it just using the pictures or very brief notes, just so they know, because it does say on the syllabus, I think at every grade, I think it says you must not memorise. Where are we? But I'm not sure it does say. But inevitably they're going to memorise it, not at the higher grades, but definitely, I would think, for the introductory and the foundation, they'll try and memorise the bulk of it, but you can still probe a little more, and that's important. But do give the feedback. And thinking of adults and children, the difference is there. Adults, time is the essence. They need exactly what's important. If you're teaching adults and you're wanting to put them into exams, or even just you're teaching them for their, advancement, time is critical. So where are they at? What do they need? Driver's license? Do they need heavy traffic license? Do they need CV skill? Critical to get the vocab of what they need. Time is, it's the urgency, and they need immediate feedback on their, on their speaking. Can we hear the beginning and the end of the words? Often the end of English words, they don't sound out. We have the harder sound at the end, the k, the d, and the t at the end. And if we can't hear those, it's very, so I would do a lot of work on the sound of the end of the word. Like the book, and perhaps a gate, they're talking about a gate, the truck, they need to have a truck license, the C and the K, sounding all of that for an adult, because they need to be able to express, the urgency really of, their daily life, because time is critical for them. And immediate feedback, they need, okay, I couldn't hear that word, I couldn't hear what you meant. So really modelling, sounding it out for them. That's critical for adults. And giving them ongoing, so they need that confidence building feedback all the time. You did that well, but I couldn't hear. Let's hear that. I couldn't hear the important words. Try that again. So adults, constant feedback all the time with very, very specific advice. Children or the young people, a little bit, you can take it a little bit more slowly, because obviously they have a bit more time on their side. It's confidence for the young ones. They won't speak. Teachers used to ring me up when I was advising, and they said, Pauline, I've got this child who's been sitting in my class, or they could be in secondary school, sitting in my class from, Southeast Asia or somewhere in Asia or the islands, could be Pacifica children or Pacifica students, sitting in my class for a whole term, Pauline, and they will not speak. And I would say, well, if I was sitting in a class in the north of China somewhere, sitting through all these classes all day, it's very demanding. It's all, they're listening. It's what we used to call the silent period, which means they're not going to produce a lot of language straight away, but it's all being absorbed. So don't ever panic if you don't get much. But once the confidence comes, you will get it, and they'll be very happy to contribute. So people often used to say, oh, they won't speak up. I asked them a question in class, Pauline, and they won't speak up. Well, if I was in a class of 30 teenage kids in the north of China being asked in Mandarin, I don't think I'd speak up either. Because you don't have the, either the fluency or the vocab or the slang or the idiom of that a very proficient native speaker has. And idioms, slang, the colloquial language, that's high level. It's difficult. And it's really challenging. So the difference, for adult, very immediate help with what they need now, because they've got life skills, they've got a family to support, they've got a job to go to, or a job they're seeking. So those immediate skills are urgent. Whereas with a child, you might have the silence, just not much give, but when they feel confident, it will come, and you're building on that. So you're building up slowly. That's but don't expect too much too soon if you're a teacher, because build on what the children can do and model it. Say, oh, those are really good nouns you used. You gave me all those different animals and the different types of animals. Let's think about the size of animals, the shape of animals, the colour of animals. What does striped mean? If I talked about a striped animal, can you tell me what that means? You see, so you're teaching them adding to their vocab all the way. Okay, so there we are. So it's good luck, and there I am for any other questions. So that was the question I just mentioned about the child adult. Rosalind, I think you mentioned also about different grades and what is required. So there's, and I'll perhaps get in touch with you privately, Rosalind, if that's all right, because you were asking about each different grade and what was required. And for the dialogues, try to have a partner if you can. And for talks, you don't have to have just posters, PowerPoints, photos, postcards, anything is good, for your visuals. And, as I say, do try and get a partner for drama, and an audience. Yes, audiences, if you possibly can, even just 2 or 3 other classmates. Really important. Okay. And then these are our syllabus. We have the ESOL with the 6 grades that Emma's put up now. And please do ask questions if you anything that I've talked about. And professional speaking for migrants. Now that's another excellent program and a syllabus that we have with Speech New Zealand. Now that is exactly as it states, professional speaking. So this is in terms of really supporting the migrant who's looking for confidence and looking to extend their chance and their possibilities, especially in the workforce, because that's their life skill. That's what they're looking for. So it's looking at their interview skills. It's looking at how they present themselves with their topic, with their chosen topic. So that gives them a huge range of possibilities to really extend their particular, so they're coming as the expert in their topic, they're bringing their background, their prior knowledge to the syllabus, the professional speaking, and they're looking to really work to extend their opportunities in the workforce or in the academic, getting into academic work, or in the working life of their careers and their jobs. So it's a really focused syllabus, whereas the ESOL with the 6th grades really starting right from the real beginner young child, or perhaps someone like an intermediate school age who's really needing developmental confidence and a sort of a build-up of their skill. Whereas professional speaking, they're adults, young adults, or midlife, or the range of adult groups and age groups, but they're really looking for something focused, a focus on their life skill, their career, and extending their skill in that particular format. So that's an excellent opportunity and a syllabus, very supportive syllabus, also the professional speaking. So thank you indeed. And I'm conscious of time. Okay, so there may be some questions there, Emma, if anyone, or some general, or perhaps some general questions. Yes, of course.
Yeah, Marguerite, if you want to just say something, you've got your hand up.
Yes.
Yes, Pauline, I have found that when teaching the ESOL syllabus to adults, and I had a group of Sri Lankan welders who were not in their English up to the level of doing professional speaking. They found the part of the syllabus where they had to talk about a legend or a fable from their country. They found that very difficult and something they could not relate to. They really enjoyed practicing talking about their workplace and welding rods and safety at work. I had one Chinese in the class as well, and I gave them photos and drawings of the most popular fables and legends from their culture. As adults, they couldn't get themselves to talk about it.
No. It wasn't obviously. I'm just thinking for adults whether that is appropriate, an appropriate section. There should possibly be another alternative there. Yes. I agree, Margaret, because when you've got adult people who are experienced and skilled in their work, it's not an appropriate there. I'm just thinking it would have been really good to have used their skill, their welding. How do you actually get started? Even in that, I'm just thinking about something that would be useful, that perhaps their health and safety and risks with welding, a topic that's meaningful to them.
When in the examination, they brought along pieces of equipment, safety equipment and welding equipment, and they talked about that. And they could relate to that.
That's right. Yes.
In terms of the professional speaking course, even at certificate level, which is the first level, my test is, can they hold a one-to-one conversation with you, particularly about their work in English? Because if they can't do that, you cannot really take them from that position, from being able to talk, having the grammar, having the vocabulary, to standing up there and talking to an audience about their work, or role-playing job interviews. Because the migrants that I work with, they want to know how to do a New Zealand job interview. And our job interviews are different to the interviews that they are used to. And so we role-play a lot of job interviews.
Yes. And I think that and a lot of cultural interaction there can be quite challenging, because we have such a like an interactive, engaging interview style with all people, but possibly they are used to very much a hierarchical interview style, where it's almost like a lecture type format. Rather than an interactive, engaging.
Yeah, and the one thing that I often have to teach them is, do not tell your whole life story in response to the very first question, because that's what they tend to do. You ask them, give us a brief overview of your career, and then they tell you everything. And I said, be brief, stop. The interviewers want to ask more questions.
Yes, it's hard because it's hard for them to filter. That's another skill, filtering out what's the important, the key part, and because they want to share everything that they can, think about, remember, and it all comes. And I think that filter with just being able to logically prioritize, it's quite a high level skill. That's why I think it all tends to come out. Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Helen?
Yeah, just wanting to ask Pauline, have you got any ideas for where to get resources? You mentioned the particularly Chinese students who leave off the last consonant on words. Do you just simply get them to just keep reading lists of words, or what can you do? Are there any resources?
No, I would very much make it, no, not list of words, very much meaningful about what are they studying in class. You know, they'll have different texts that they're looking at, or they'll be doing story, or they'll be doing other work, you know, in class, in their normal class time. I would always work with what they've got. Bring along what you're studying, even if it's a science book. You know,
like in their conversation though,
yes.
and they're saying they're leaving the ends off, like they're going hat instead of hat or whatever.
Yes.
Do you correct that, or is it more important for the conversation to flow? Do you get them to
the conversation flowing? But I would. At the end, I'd say, we had a lovely discussion. We were talking about clothes. We had a lovely discussion about fashion, but I couldn't hear some of your words, and I would just, I wouldn't interrupt them. I would say, we've just been having this great conversation, and we've shared about the latest fashions and what's coming in for the new season, but I couldn't hear. I struggled with some of your the words, some of the hat or whatever it was, or the belt, or the I missed. You said that the belt. I thought, oh, what's it? The bell back? The belt? No, you meant the belt back, as back in fashion. So
and then would you get them to practice that word then?
Yes, model it and say, belt, I need to hear, just, you know, I need to hear, that I need to hear, because otherwise they go out with their friends and say, oh, so this back in fashion, and, you know, and the other girls, you know what it's like. They have to go out and they're usually, talking with others. So it's only, but I wouldn't interrupt. I keep people going. Then I would just make a little note, beside when, you're having a discussion. Only 2 or 3 words though, Helen. I wouldn't give them a list. I couldn't hear belt, and I also missed you were talking about the latest fashion for sun hat, and I couldn't hear it was a sun hat, and but one other. So only 2 or 3. Don't give them a big list. It's too much. And then the next class, if I was you, I always review. Remember yesterday we were talking, or last week, we were talking about fashion. Can you remember those 3? Oh, yes. Belt, hat. So you're reviewing. Go back. Don't assume they remember. Don't assume. Go back. So that's why if you just have a pencil and make a little note. Okay, hat, belt, and whatever, I don't know, whatever it is. So it might be something on TikTok, I don't know. I couldn't hear the TikTok, whatever. So you couldn't hear. Yes, but don't make
There's been a question come through the chat. Claudine, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yes, hi, my name is Claudine, but my context is different. I teach Thai students here in Thailand, but I'm not within your organization, but
hello.
Regarding
Claudine.
Hi. Regarding the pronunciation question, in terms of the Thai students, they're big on losing face. So I personally do not correct their pronunciation in front of other students because they feel embarrassed. However, I feel like there are similarities between Thai students and Chinese students when it comes to pronunciation. Their last syllable or the final sound of each word tends to be, it's either trailing off or completely changed.
It's down here. It's swallowed down here.
Yes. And then, so some students would say the words change and chance the same way. Because they would say, oh, I need the chance. And so for me, I'd say, oh, excuse me, did you say change or chance? Even if I already know that they said change. because it also helps them in the long run. They get,
of course.
they get used to saying the words correctly, and then
That's right.
over time they can listen to the difference between
That's
chance and change eventually.
That's right. And what you're doing is modeling it for them, Claudine, because they need to be able to hear the correct pronunciation. I wouldn't do it, as you say, right, and and interrupt. No.
Yeah,
But I always let the students have their spiel, to do their thing, and then we'll go back to, oh, there's just one or two things we need to check here that weren't, and then you model it, and then they can practice. Yeah, that's a really good way. Lovely to meet you, Claudine.
Lovely to meet everyone.
Lovely. You too. Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone? You can just unmute yourself and ask. Can't see everybody.
So,
yeah, Helen.
Yeah, Pauline, just wondering if you could speak to us a little bit about opportunities to work in the field, what the different places are where you might be able to work or pick up students.
Yes, for opportunities in this field, online, there are opportunities online. If you want to just check, often people are looking for either tutors, or they're looking for often for very specific help. Often it will be for the big exams, the big international exams, but sometimes it's not necessarily. They'll be looking, more for just practice. They'll be looking for fluency, so they'll be looking for opportunities to use their English, just to practice their. And there's a you can just really just Google and look up. There's a whole range of different websites that I can make a list and send them through to Emma of ones that would be helpful. So there are always opportunities. The international sector, of course, within New Zealand, as you'll realise, be well aware, with closed borders, well, we'll have to wait for another year or so before the international sector comes back. But that doesn't stop other groups. There are other, migrant people who've lived in New Zealand a long time, or other countries that are resident, still looking for fluency. So they're looking for tutors, either for their, the parents are looking for their children, the tutors, or they're looking for other ways to enhance the children's fluency. So if you're looking for business opportunities, I would, look at, go online and look at the different tutor opportunity. Often they're asking, for please register as a tutor, please send all your bio through and register. You need to filter some of these.
You do find once you've got, I seem to have a lot of Korean students at the moment, and then it's just word of mouth. You get more and more of them. And a lot of them have been in New Zealand for 3 or 4 years, and they're kind of on that borderline of whether they can do a speech and drama exam, or whether they would be better to do ESOL. So maybe it's good to do an ESOL one to get their confidence up. And they could still do that even when the others in the group are doing a speech and drama.
Totally. I would think if you've got, often the families have lived here for 3 or 4 years, or the children have been around for quite some time, I would, the exam, especially if they're at that level, if they could, do a good intermediate level exam. That's a good challenging exam, a good format for them, and it challenges them without perhaps having to do, the detail of the speech and drama, and they could get confidence, really strong, think, I can really manage this, whereas perhaps it's giving them more sense of, sort of a sense of achievement that at this particular level. but there are opportunities there. There are these students, and I mean, even here at the language school, a lot of our work is on Zoom, but there are still students around who were here before COVID, and they're still here, sort of after all these different difficulties, and because they've been in the country quite some time, and of course you've got other migrant families who've come out and they're residents here now, but their fluency is still, it's still at a fairly basic level. So, and it is word of mouth. They find out you're an excellent teacher, and the next moment you've got someone else knocking at the door. So it's the way it is. The communities talk to each other. They talk to each other in their church groups or in their own social groups. The network goes through. I mean, you'll be well aware of that. So in some ways, you don't always have to advertise. It can be work, but if you are seeking a business opportunity, online, you look up tutor, ESOL tutor, tutors required or tutors needed. I would advise people just to filter through some of the websites and just, check things out, of course. But there are opportunities there, of course. And the language schools hopefully will come back. I know it's been a really tough time for language schools in particular. But things will improve. And Emma, I think Emma, you've got my, I'm looking at the time frame, you've got my email there. Anyone, you're most welcome to email me. Emma, if you just want to put that email back again, just so that, and if there's any other questions. There we are, thank you, Emma. Yes, email me anytime. Look, I don't mind where you are. I may not answer, immediately, but I will promise you faithfully, I will contact you. So there you are, Pauline.Douglas@ymail.com, and just pop through your query about the syllabus, the ESOL Speech New Zealand syllabus. As I say, it's for confidence and a sense of achievement. It's not trying to catch candidates out. It's to give them like a supportive, like a ladder type, and meant to be engaging and fun. It's not meant to be a trial. Make it a fun time to prepare. Okay. Is that you, Linda? Did you have a question, Linda? No? Oh. Lovely to see you. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. If there are other questions, I will get them from Emma and we'll collect. But you can contact me, and it's been a pleasure. So Speech New Zealand is a totally supportive organisation for your ESOL candidate and for your professional speaking for migrants.
Thank you so much, Pauline, for sharing with us.
You're so welcome.
What's evident really from what you've told us tonight is that obviously the thing that shines through is the tremendous empathy and caring that you obviously have for your students. And I think maybe that's the takeaway from that too, is that that's so important in dealing with these students who are speakers of other languages.
And they'll always remember you, Helen, for helping them. Yes.
Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you.